welcome to the Verve. Happy Sunday. We're excited to worship with you. Let's stand to our feet. Let's worship our God this morning. Let's sing out with boldness and faith this morning. Come on.
When I'm in the roughest water, I won't go under, I won't drown. And when I'm in over my head, I know that you won't let me down. When I'm broken and down to nothing, I know that you are always up to something good. I know that you are always up to something good. You'll make a way, whatever it takes. There's nothing your love won't endure. I know that you are always up to something good. Even through the deepest valley, you go before me, you are here. For I know you'll never leave me, your love surrounds me, I won't fear. When I'm broken and down to nothing, I know that you are always up to something good. I know that you are always up to something good. You'll make a way, whatever it takes. There's nothing your love won't endure. I know that you are always up to something good. Let's sing this next part out together. Through the darkest night, you are on my side. You are always faithful. Through my fear and doubt, you will lead me out. You are always able. Through the darkest night, you are on my side. You are always faithful. Through my fear and doubt, you will lead me out. You are always able. You're always able. I know that you are always up to something good. I know that you are always up to something good. You'll make a way, whatever it takes. There's nothing your love won't endure. I know that you are always up to something good. Sing it out one more time. You'll make a way, whatever it takes. There's nothing your love won't endure. I know that you are always up to something good.
Even let's give a shout of praise today. Hey, you guys, we have a new one for you today. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to just come before the Lord and offer up our worship with gratitude this morning. So when you catch on, would you join us as we sing? When I called on God, He heard every last prayer. In the midst of my brokenness, He met me there with hope for tomorrow and strength for today. Oh, how could I not give Him thanks? He's the giver of good gifts, the breath in our lungs. He's the hope and the promise that we're standing on. He's faithful to heal and restore. So shout if this story is yours. Give thanks to the Lord. the breath in our lungs. He's the hope and the promise that we're standing on. He's faithful to heal and restore. So shout if this story is yours. Give thanks to the Lord. Give thanks to the Lord. All right, here we go. You have forgiven if you've been redeemed by His grace. Give thanks if you've been surrounded, but then you saw God make a way. Give thanks if you've seen His power do things that you just can't explain. Give thanks if you live in freedom, 'cause Jesus came out of the grave. And give thanks. He's the giver of good gifts, the breath in our lungs. He's the hope and the promise that we're standing on. He's faithful to heal and restore. So shout if this story is yours. He's the giver of good gifts, the breath in our lungs. He's the hope and the promise that we're standing on. He's faithful to heal and restore. So shout if this story is yours. Oh, give thanks. Somebody give thanks. All right, here we go. If you've been forgiven, if you've been redeemed by His grace, give thanks. If you've been surrounded, but then you saw God make a way, give thanks. If you've seen His power do things that you just can't explain, give thanks. If you live in freedom, 'cause Jesus came out of the grave, give thanks. Give thanks. Give thanks. Give thanks. Give thanks to the Lord. Hey, church, I love that chorus so much. He's the giver of good gifts. Can we sing that one more time together? He's the giver of good gifts, the breath in our lungs. He's the hope and the promise that we're standing on. He's faithful to heal and restore. So shout if this story is yours. Give thanks to the Lord. Oh, we thank you, we thank you.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you So we pour out our praise to you only. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord.
Come on, church, let's sing that out.
All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only.
Lord, we worship you this morning with our whole hearts. Every breath that comes from our lungs is a gift from you. So may we just use it to glorify you, not just in these walls here at this church, but as we step out these doors today, let us be a light for your kingdom, Lord. We love you. Is your name that all of God's children said, amen, amen. Hey, Verve City, you guys can go ahead and take a seat.
Well, good morning and welcome. My name is Audrey Eisenberg. I'm one of the pastors here. It is so great to be able to be with you all this morning. Thank you for joining us. If you happen to be new around here or new-ish, we would love to thank you for being here. If you haven't already been able to connect with us, I want to encourage you to grab this New Here card from the seat back in front of you, or you can scan the QR code that's up here on the screen, fill out our little quick contact form, and that is your way to get a gift that we would love to be able to give you just to say thank you for being here. You can bring your confirmation once you fill out that little form. You'll get a confirmation to your email. You can bring your phone to the welcome spot, and we've got a great team. It's going to be by the neon sign in the lobby. They'd love to meet you after service and send you on your way with something special today. So be sure to stop by there if you haven't had a chance yet to do that. Here at Verve City Church, there's always a lot going on. So on the back side of that very same card is your answer to the question, what's going on? We try to keep a section of our website each week updated with just the big 3 most upcoming kind of urgent things that we think you should know about. So just to give you a quick update on what those are for this week, the first is that we are almost at activity group season here. During the summer, we're offering 16 different groups that are all based around hobbies or interests, things you enjoy or might want to learn how to do. And so our activity groups are about to get started here over the next few weeks. Each of them has a different kind of schedule. You may need to know things like how to ride a mountain bike to join the mountain biking group. But you don't have to know everything. You could join some of these groups and learn a new card game. You could learn new recipes in the baking group. There are just a ton of possibilities. So I want to encourage you, if you are looking to schedule a little bit of intentional fun this summer, activity groups are for you. Join one. We've got about 150 people already registered. There are still spots, but we don't want you to miss out. And again, they're starting in just the next couple of weeks, so be sure to check out those options and get yourself signed up and elbow the person next to you and make sure they get signed up too. We would love to have this be just a time of friendships developing and encouraging one another through the summer. So check those out. Another thing we have coming up, if you are kind of new around here, you've been checking us out for a while, but you're not sure everything that's available, or you're curious about what next steps might look like for you,
or for your family, I want to encourage you to jump in with us to Activate. It's going to be starting up next Sunday. We run it for 4 weeks in a row, 4 Sundays in a row. So during the 10:30 to 11:30 hour, we want to invite you, if you're new around here, join us for Activate. It's going to be kind of a small group discussion. Usually there's, 15 to 20 or so people in our Activate classes. It's a great way for you to learn more about Verve City Church, what makes us distinctive, what are we all about, how are we thinking about our connections in the community. And there's a section of the class that's all about you. What makes you uniquely wired to make a difference? How has God gifted you? And why does that matter? So it's a really great way to explore Verve City and some things about yourself. And so we hope at the end of that class, you feel more confident about what you can choose next. How can you get involved? How can you serve? How can you be plugged in? What are the groups available that you might really benefit from? So that's our hope. We would love for you to join us for Activate starting next Sunday. So you can sign up for that on our website if that sounds great, or ask if you've got questions. Please stop by the welcome spot. We'd love to be able to answer questions you have about that as well. And then finally, I want to encourage all of us to think about dedicating just a little bit of time this summer to participating in one of Verve City's many Saturday Serve opportunities. Every Saturday, we have teams of people from Verve City that partner with nonprofit organizations. We've already got it set up, so all you have to do is sign up and show up for a couple hours, literally couple hours, 2 hours on a Saturday, is a great way for you to join Verve City Church in being a force for good in our communities. And guess what? Nonprofit organizations that are serving our neighbors, through their food distribution and things like that, they need vacation too, right? It's summertime. I know, you got your vacations planned, but if you can carve out just a little bit of time, our extra help over the summer, when sometimes volunteer support can go a little low, we would love to encourage you. So if you can think about one Saturday this month, all of the options are on our website right now for the month of June and July. So is there one Saturday where you could give 2 hours and really make a difference? I want to encourage you to consider checking that out and see if you could get signed up for those kinds of opportunities as well. Lastly, in this moment, I'm going to invite our ushers to come forward because each time we worship, we take up an offering. We choose to give as part of our worship. And many of you give online, which is awesome. We appreciate that. And some of you are visiting. And so as our ushers begin passing the baskets today, if this isn't a moment where you're giving, please just help us by passing the baskets along. Ushers, you can go ahead and start passing those now. And for those who have made the plan to give this morning, we would love for you to be able to have that opportunity. I so appreciate the generosity of people in this room who consistently give because they care about helping others find life by following Jesus. All of these ministries, the activity groups, the Activate class for new people, the opportunities to serve our community, none of that is possible without your and our collective generosity. So we're grateful for that as we give our offering this morning. Lastly, I'm going to invite you to join with me in welcoming Josh because we are about to jump into the 3rd week in a series we've been calling How to Handle Anything. Let's welcome Josh.
Blah, 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 blah.
Wow, that cut off. Hey, everybody, how's it going? My name is, how's it going? And no one said anything. That's good. I'm glad that you're having a good morning so far. How's it going? You're totally in it to win it. That's great. My name is Josh. I'm the lead pastor here at Verve City Church. We've been in a series called How to Handle Anything. Today, we're going to talk about how to handle failure without losing yourself. How to handle failure without losing yourself. In the 1990s, I was in high school, and because I'm old, and my brother was also in high school. He's a couple years younger than I am. My brother was a huge fan of Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, absolutely obsessed with them completely. I did not like Michael Jordan by that point because he had won 6 championships, and when someone gets a little too successful, I find myself becoming a generational hater, and that's probably psychosis on my own part, but that's true. Like, for instance, when the Thunder lost to the Spurs last night, I was so happy. I was like, yes, they're not getting 2 championships in a row. Ha! That was a dynasty that lasted 1 year. Ha! Like that's how I feel about things. So the problem with Michael Jordan isn't that he was bad. It was that he was too good, and people loved him too much. He was like probably the most famous person in the world at that point. And so I zagged. I wanted to cheer for somebody else. So I decided probably the player that had the most potential at the time to maybe take the mantle and become the best basketball player ever was Penny Hardaway. And so I started following Penny Hardaway, which was a great choice because, as we all know by now, everyone just claims that Penny Hardaway is the greatest basketball player of all time. So I made a great decision. Anyway, my brother loved Michael Jordan. My brother loved Michael Jordan so much that there was an 800 number you could call. And so the number was free, but then you could have a conversation with Michael Jordan. Like, it was pre-recorded messages. You had to pay for the conversation, but the initial number when you called would say, "Hi, this is Michael Jordan," and he would say something affirming or whatever, and then you were supposed to punch in, your credit card information to pay for more. My brother had no money because he was in high school, but he would sometimes just call the number just to hear Michael Jordan's voice. And I just want to name how incredibly weird that still is to this day that he did that, but he did. Michael Jordan was everywhere in the 90s. He had tons of commercials. There was one Nike ad in particular about his failure that I remember as probably the greatest Michael Jordan ad of all time. And the ad showed like kind of a slow motion of Michael Jordan walking into the stadium for a game, and he had his own voiceover over the slow motion of him walking in. And his voiceover said this: "I've missed over 9,000 shots in my career. I have lost nearly 300 games. 26 times, my team has trusted me to take the game-winning shot, and I missed. I have failed over and over and over in my life, and that is why I succeed." And that's the commercial. And you can decide whether it's weirder that my brother used to call Michael Jordan or that I have memorized that entire commercial, but that was the commercial. And I remember watching that as a teenager and thinking like, oh, that's awesome. Like, he's learned through the failure. That's really cool. Like you just got to keep going after it. You got to keep shooting, right? You got to keep moving forward because you can learn from your failure. And so at an early age, I remember that commercial and some other kind of advice that some mentors gave me. I was like, oh, failure can be really helpful. But at that age, I had not really experienced life-altering failure. And so I understood it as an idea, not as something I had lived. I was in my late 20s, and I decided to interview for a job as the lead pastor of a church. I'd never been the lead pastor of a church before. And I was woefully underqualified, but thankfully they didn't have very many applicants. So I put my resume in, and the church had a really weird story. It used to be a church of about 1,000 people, and then they decided to leave the denomination that they were a part of at the time. And the denomination immediately sued them for all of their property and assets. So you got like this Christian church and this Christian denomination going into a public court of law, fighting it out over property and money. It was really gross and really ugly. And so that church was 1,000, and then when they left the denomination, they went to 500. By the time I started interviewing for that position, long distance, they were down to 125. By the time I actually showed up for the interview in person, they were down to 70. And then they offered me the job, and by the time I accepted it and showed up, they were down to 26 people. So here I was in my 20s, pastoring a church of 26 people. And one of the things that we had talked about in the course of the job interview was that, I understood that they couldn't help that the denomination had sued them. But in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul teaches about how Christians really shouldn't try to sue each other over things that they can handle themselves in a court of law. And so I said, I think that if this church were to decide to countersue this denomination or go after them legally, I would really struggle with that biblically as a thing that we did. And they agreed. They were like, no, we have to defend ourselves in court because we've been sued, but we would never go after the denomination ourselves. And I'm like, great. So my wife and I prayed about whether to accept the position. We decided that this is where God was leading us. We really felt that strongly. And there's a lot of times in my life that I've prayed, God, A or B, and I felt like basically the choice was up to me. I could just decide what I wanted to do. But this is one of the few instances where we prayed, because I was offered a job in Texas at the same time, which was closer to family and was more stable. The church was way more stable. It was better pay, all that kind of stuff. And I really felt like God was saying, no, you're supposed to go to this other church that was in Missouri. So we were living in Chicago at the time. So instead of going home to Texas to take a stable job, we felt like God was leading us to Missouri to take a very unstable job. And so my wife and I moved from Chicago to Missouri. My wife cried the entire way there because she also felt like we were supposed to go there, but it felt like, wow, but we're not going to Texas to be closer to family. And so that was a heavy burden on both of us, that she was feeling it that heavily. And so we started to meet, all 26 of us, and then 6 weeks after we got there, the board of the church, the elder board, one of the board chair came to me at my house and said, hey, we had a meeting without you tonight, usually not a good sign. And he said, we've decided unanimously to countersue the denomination. I was like, hey man, like we moved all the way here. We gave up a job that was closer to family, more money, all the things. And like one of the things we agreed about in the interview process is that we would not do this. And he was like, well, that was the decision that we made. So I gathered the board together a few days later and I just told them like, hey, if you're gonna do this, I don't feel good about that and I can't be the face of this decision. So I can resign my position and you as a church can decide to continue this lawsuit if you want to, but I can't be a part of it. 2 of the board members that night apologized to me and the other guys because they said, we didn't feel good about it, but we didn't want to say anything. And so we're sorry, we shouldn't do that. The other 3, instead of deciding that this was a bad idea, they decided to leave the church and like continue on with the same name as the church so that they could just be a part of the lawsuit suing the denomination and the rest of us could just start something new if we wanted to. And so they did. They left and they took their families so that they could sue the denomination. That was the most important thing to them at the time. And so within 6 weeks of my arrival, through my amazing leadership and preaching skills, I grew the church from 26 people to 17 people. The weight of that, like I moved my wife here for this. We're far from family. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm starting off 6 weeks in as a total failure. Probably most of us, when I talk about failing in life, you have something that comes to mind. And it doesn't feel like the commercial with Michael Jordan walking in the stadium with all the flashes going off and everybody cheering for him. It feels like, oh, actually failure is way harder than Nike makes it seem. Like once you experience it, once you walk through it, there's a weight to it that the commercial can't capture. Some of you, there's like a point in your life you can point to, like this thing happened, I failed at that, and things weren't the same afterwards. Or this thing happened, I failed at that, and I wasn't the same afterwards. For some of you, it's not a point of failure. It's getting to a certain age and realizing, man, I'm 30 years old now, or I'm 40 years old now, or I'm 50 years old now, and I thought life would look like this, but instead life looks like this. And so it's not like a particular failure that comes to mind, it's just a series of circumstances or bad decisions or misplaced expectations, and now you find yourself at a different place than you wanted to, and it just feels heavy. There's not even one thing that you feel, it just feels like this is a series of failures that led me to this place. For some of us, it's a relational failure. We thought that the relationship with our coworker, our friend, our family member, our spouse would be one thing, and it turns out, whether because of us or because of them, like it is a totally different thing. And for some of us, like it's just an accumulation that happens over time of a number of different failures. And you find yourself maybe at whatever age you are now, and like you're not devastated. It's not like every waking moment is spent thinking about it or dwelling on it necessarily. You're not devastated, but you're just diminished. Like the failure has changed the way you think about yourself, has changed your ability to really put yourself out there, has changed your ability to really lean in. Something happened, and now you're operating at least partially out of the pain that failure brought instead of the possibility of what the future could hold. Because the real danger of failure is what it convinces you about yourself. And if you fail enough times, or if you fail big enough, or if you have the perception that you failed big enough, whatever the facts actually are, it can just change the way that you think about yourself. And so today what I want to do is actually want to look at a story in the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, about Israel's most famous prophet, or one of their most famous prophets. His name is Elijah. And I don't assume that we all necessarily know who Elijah was, but in the book of 1 Kings, we find a huge chunk of his story. So Elijah was a prophet during about the 9th century BC. And Elijah was constantly trying to call Israel back to their covenant with God. Israel was a nation that was set apart in order to be blessed so that they could be a blessing. But what they found themselves is that they were oftentimes tempted to follow after other gods of other peoples in the area. They're supposed to follow after Yahweh, the one true creator God, and be blessed by him so that they can bless others so that everyone might be drawn to Yahweh, the one true creator God. And yet what they find themselves when they're surrounded by these other gods, they're tempted to follow those gods as well, to at least hedge their bets by pushing into some other religious traditions. And so Elijah is constantly trying to call Israel back to who they were created to be. So in Elijah, we find he's one of Israel's greatest prophets. He stands against kings and queens and false gods. He's incredibly brave. He calls down fire from heaven. We're going to look at that in just a moment. He defeats over 450 prophets of Baal. He saw miracles that few people ever have, and he seems spiritually unstoppable. And then one day he completely gave up. One day his perceived failure led him to want to completely throw in the towel. So we're going to look at a story about Elijah that we find in 1 Kings 18 and 19 this morning. And we love to go deep here at Verve City Church. So I'm going to kind of give you some info about this story that may not be obvious on its first reading, but is really incredibly helpful context for why the story operates the way it does. And let me just name something before we jump into it. Just like we talked a few weeks ago about how King David, though he was one of Israel's greatest kings, he's not a great role model. There are all kinds of things about his life that we should not imitate, and a few things about his life that we should. Elijah, similarly, is not a role model in everything that he does. Our core of understanding God here at Verve City Church is that God looks like Jesus dying on the cross for the very ones who were executing him. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. That's what God is like. And so because we understand that, that's what God's character is like, that's the kind of life God's invited us into. Sometimes when we read back through the Old Testament, we see pictures of some of God's people that disturb us because we have a Jesus-focused lens for understanding God. And so what I want to name is that we're going to look at this story, and Elijah is going to act very violently through parts of it. But Elijah is a remarkable prophet, but he's not Jesus. So Elijah is not our yardstick that we measure ourselves against. We're trying to follow after the way of Jesus, but Elijah is an important part of the story that God was telling through Israel leading up to Jesus. So if you're disturbed by some of the details of this story, I just want to tell you, me too, join the club. And yet there are some things that are really helpful for us to learn. Now, one of the deities, the gods that Israel was drawn toward, and the one that comes up the most in the Old Testament, is the god Baal. Baal is a Canaanite god, and Baal really just means Lord, but Baal Hadad is the specific version of Baal that these Canaanites were worshiping, that the northern kingdom of Israel just kept being pulled toward and pulled toward and pulled toward. And you can imagine why, because here's just a few things about Baal. He controlled the rain, and he controlled the storms, and he controlled agricultural fertility, and he brought crops, and he defeated drought, and he protected the land from chaos. The people who followed Baal, this is what they thought of him. This is what they understood him to be able to do. So imagine being an Israelite, and you're supposed to follow after Yahweh, but then you go through this season of drought, and now you can't plant your crops and have success with that. Well, you're surrounded by other people who are saying, actually, we understand you worship Yahweh, but we've got this other God who controls the water flow, controls the storms and the lightning and the seasons. And so if you really want to have your crops work out well, you should add Baal Hadad to your pantheon of gods that you worship. Now, the problem is this went way beyond a few individuals choosing to add Baal to their pantheon of gods. And this was tons of Israelites choosing to participate in this idolatry, to say we worship Yahweh, we also worship Baal. And so Elijah is spending his life trying to get the leaders of the northern kingdom of Israel and the leaders of his tribes to turn against this Baal worship because it's breaking covenant with God. The covenant that God made with Moses at Mount Sinai, it's breaking that covenant. And therefore it's preventing Israel from living into the call on their lives. And so there's a face-off that happens in 1 Kings chapter 18 between Elijah, the prophet of Yahweh, and 450 prophets of Baal. And this is what we read in 1 Kings 18:23. So Elijah's facing off against these prophets, and he sets the rules for the competition they're about to have. He says, now bring 2 bulls, The prophets of Baal may choose whichever one they wish and cut it into pieces and lay it on the wood of their altar, but without setting fire to it. And I will prepare the other bull and lay it on the wood on the altar, but not set fire to it. Then call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. The God who answers by setting fire to the wood is the true God. And all the people agreed. So, right, your God is supposed to control the weather and the lightning. So I want you to put your bull out here, right? You can call on him to send down lightning and light it on fire. And we'll see if he hears you and does it. And I'll call on my God and we'll see what happens. This is like a total prophet throwdown, okay? Like a real one, not like a lame one like Tyson versus Paul. It's not that, okay? It's a real throwdown. And so he gets them together, and he takes these two bulls, okay? And he decides, like, this is what the showdown's gonna be like. So he takes one bull, and he gives it to them, and they're able to cut it up, right? And so, cut it into smaller pieces so that it's even less of a miracle if it flames because it's not so big. It's resistant to fire. There's little pieces of it. I'm not going to tear this apart because this belongs to my 10-year-old, so I'm just going to leave it here. But imagine it being cut into tiny, bloody pieces. Good picture on a Sunday morning? Great. Let's keep going. All right. So then they start to pray to Baal-Hadad that Baal will set this bull on fire, that he'll send down lightning, fire from the sky, and that this bull will go up in flames. And in the story in 1 Kings 18, they pray and they pray and they pray. All morning long, for hours they pray. So around noontime, Elijah starts to razz them a little bit. He's like, hey, what's going on? I thought Baal was all powerful. I thought he would send fire down, lightning down, and light this thing up. What's going on? And then he starts to kind of tease him. He's like, perhaps Baal is a little sleepy. Maybe he's falling asleep. Maybe taking a little nappy time. Maybe that's why he can't hear you. He's so tired. Maybe he went on a journey, right? Maybe he left you like the kid he doesn't like anymore, and he kind of went away from you for a little bit. Maybe he can't hear. Maybe you should yell louder, Baal, oh please Baal, come and light our cow on fire. Like maybe he should do that. And so they go even more vigorously in their prayer, and they start to cut themselves, and blood starts to pour over the skin. This is part of the rituals that they had for trying to invoke the name of Baal. And they do it, and they do it, and they do it, and nothing for hours and hours. So then Elijah takes the second bull, and unfortunately, my kids only had one cow, so the second bull is be represented by a unicorn today. So they take the second bull, and it's not enough to just put it on the altar. He doesn't cut it up into small pieces. And he tells then, his helper and the people who are around him, he's like, hey, I want you to take 4 jars of water, okay? And I want you to, throw some water on the bull. I just want you to do that. It's a shame you guys never sit on the front row. We'd be having so much fun right now. And he says, you know what? I want you to do it. I want you to do it again. I want you to do it again. And so they do it again, and then he has them do it a second time, and he has them do it a third time. And so this thing is completely doused with water. There's gonna be no denying at the end of this, if this thing lights up, it is going to be a miracle because it should not be able to catch on fire. And Elijah does not pray all morning and all afternoon. He doesn't beg, he doesn't cut himself, he's not bleeding out. He simply prays, dear Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, would you please show your people that you are the one true God? And just like that, fire, not lightning, full-on pillar of fire comes down from heaven and consumes the bull on the altar place. And the people are shocked and surprised that the Creator God, Yahweh, was able to start the smoke show, and the lightning and rain god, Baal, was nowhere to be found. It's like the greatest showdown in all of the Hebrew Bible, probably. And Elijah is the victor. You would think that he would be thrilled, he would be excited, because Elijah appears to be winning in this particular story. He is absolutely winning. So what happens? What does he do? Does he celebrate, right? When someone wins the Oscars and they go to In-N-Out afterwards, does he go grab a burger? Does he take the bull that's now nice and charred and just create hamburgers out of it? What does he do? No. He doesn't do that at all. In fact, you may notice, at least in my translation of the Bible, I'm not sure if it's in yours, right after chapter 18 comes chapter 19. And in chapter 19, something surprising happens. First of all, the king and the queen of the northern kingdom of Israel, They see what he's done. And he's not only did he win the battle, but then he had all the prophets of Baal killed, which is grisly and not great. But we recognize that because we live on the other side of Jesus at this point. And in 1 Kings 19, when Ahab, the king, got home, he told Jezebel, the queen, everything Elijah had done, including the way he had killed all the prophets of Baal. And so Jezebel sent this message to Elijah: may the gods strike me and even kill me if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you just as you killed them. Now, you would think the prophet of the God who just sent a pillar of fire down to consume the bull would not be afraid of this. He's like, I got Yahweh on my side. But he's terrified. Elijah was afraid, and he fled for his life, and he went to Beersheba, a town in Judah, and he left his servant there, and then he went on alone into the wilderness, traveling all day. So he has a servant that travels with him, and he drops him off because he doesn't want to be with people. He can't deal with it. You would think he had just won, but in fact, this win didn't feel like a win to him. It felt like, actually, like I have done this thing, and those prophets are gone, and it actually doesn't matter because Israel still hasn't turned back to Yahweh. The king and the queen still haven't turned to Yahweh, the one true God. Like now they just want me dead. All of this seems like it's for nothing. And so he sat down under a solitary broom tree, and he prayed that he might die. I've had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors who have already died. Sometimes failure is like a moment we can point to. It's like, oh, I thought that would go differently, and instead I botched it. Sometimes it's a relationship that falls apart. Sometimes it's a job that's been lost. Sometimes failure feels like that. Sometimes failure is actually when you seemingly win, and you win maybe even over and over and over again, but you find that even in the winning, you haven't changed anything, and you get to a place where you start to ask the question, man, with all of my effort and all of this time and everything I'm doing, what's the point? Why continue to go forward? That's where Elijah is. And what's fascinating about his desire to die right after seemingly getting this huge win but feeling like a failure is that God doesn't show up and start to argue with him. He doesn't show up initially and be like, hey, here's all the reasons that you're wrong, Elijah. Here's why you should think about this differently. God doesn't enter into a debate. God doesn't yell at him. Instead, God meets him in the valley where he is, and he ministers to him. Then he lay down and he slept under the broom tree. But as he was sleeping, an angel touched him and told him, get up and eat. And he looked around, and there beside his head was some bread baked on hot stones and a jar of water. So he ate and drank, and he lay down again. Sometimes after failure, the most spiritual thing you can do is recover. Like, a lot of times we think, oh, you just need to get back up, get back in the game, like just keep going. But a lot of times, if that's your mindset, like, oh, I messed up, I just got to keep going. I got to pretend it didn't happen. That's not actually helpful. And God meets him in the midst of his failure, in the midst of his what's the point, and he basically says, like look, I need you to eat, I need you to drink, I need you to rest some more. Because a lot of times we think like, oh, no pain, no gain, failure is just pain, you just got to jump in there and just keep going, no pain, no gain, but pain doesn't make us stronger. Processed pain makes us stronger. And after failure, the thing you need to do the most sometimes is to just recover from it. And so 2 times, an angel shows up and feeds and gives him water and lets him lay back down. The second time, a few verses later, so he got up and he ate and he drank, and the food gave him enough strength to travel 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Sinai, Horeb, the mountain of God. And there he came to a cave where he spent the night. So just a little bit of background on Mount Sinai. If you're familiar with the story of Israel, they were enslaved in Egypt for about 400 years. God sends Moses to go and release them from Pharaoh's grip, and he moves them toward a promised land. On their way out of Egypt, they stop by a mountain, Mount Sinai, and God makes a covenant with his people there. And part of the covenant is that he gives Moses these 10 commandments that he comes down the mountain with. While God is giving Moses the 10 commandments, the Israelites at the base of the mountain start to create a golden idol, a golden cow, to represent Yahweh, and they start to worship the cow as a representation of Yahweh. So it's not that they're worshiping a different God, it's that they've decided to essentially embody Yahweh in this golden cow, but Yahweh doesn't want to be embodied in a golden cow. He cannot be domesticated, this will not represent him, and so he's very angry that they've chosen to do this. Moses comes down from the mountain, he's angry too. He takes the 10 Commandments and breaks them right there, throws them down, which seems like a waste of time. And then he ends up going up on top of the mountain. And God basically tells him, like, look, if this is what they're going to do, if they're going to misrepresent me, this is going to have ramifications for everybody. I need them to represent me well so that all the nations of the world might be saved through them. And if I have to start over with you, Moses, I will. Moses begs for the rest of the Israelites. Please don't destroy them. Don't take them out. Please, I believe that you can be our God and we can be your people. So Moses goes to Mount Sinai and begs for Israel's life. In the rabbinical writings, in the Mishnah and the Talmud, they criticize Ezekiel because he goes to the same mountain, Mount Sinai, and where Moses begged for Israel, Elijah throws them under the bus. So he gets here to Mount Sinai, the mountain of God. There he came to a cave. And the Lord said to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? And Elijah replied, I have zealously served the Lord God Almighty. I've done my part, God. You told me to do things. I did things. But what happened? The people of Israel have broken their covenant with you, torn down your altars, and killed every one of your prophets. I'm the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me too. Here's what's fascinating. Elijah was not the only one left. In fact, God rebukes him a few verses later and tells him, actually, there's over 7,000 prophets. You're not the only one. Stop getting too big for your britches, right? Like, there's a lot more of you. But it felt like he was the only one left. Why? He'd given his life's work to this, trying to get people to turn away from Baal, but they won't do it. And so now he's thinking, like, all of that was just a total waste. What is the point? And so he starts to feel like he's the only one, and it's all on him. And woe is me. I can't do it. I can't possibly do it, because failure lies to us. It skews our perception of what's real. And so when we fail, or when we feel like we've failed, that failure has a way of getting into our ear and telling us things about the situation, about ourselves, about the people around us that are not true. Failure lies to us. And it usually lies in one of two ways. There are two ditches that it lies. One is, it's everybody's fault but yours. And the other is, it's nobody's fault but yours. And depending on your kind of personality, your wiring, you will be drawn to one of these two things. My wife always thinks it is her fault and nobody else's. I have a great defense attorney in my brain. I always think, it's probably somebody else's fault. What could I possibly have done? And both of those beliefs are lies. Failure is a liar. And so you need to recognize that. Because once you fail, it will have downstream effects. Because failure lies. So, for instance, you might start to have imposter syndrome. I'm just pretending, right? I can't possibly actually do it. I just talked to someone this last week who was in the same line of work for 30 years. And I just had this conversation with him Friday night. He just told me that for 30 years, he walked into his work. He was very successful. He made a lot of money. But he walked into his place of business every day for 30 years thinking today might be the day he's fired. For 30 years. No matter how successful he was, every failure he had was the thing he remembered and his brain clung to. And so for 30 years, he felt like a little kid trying to fit into his dad's business suit. He never felt like he was actually as good as the evidence would indicate, because he failed a few times, and that was the way that he defined himself in his head. And so he just felt like an imposter. And maybe you know what that feels like. Maybe I remember when someone called me sir the first time. I think I was in my mid-30s. I had started losing some hair. And I still, in my mid-30s, did not really feel like an adult. I'm 44 now and still many days do not feel like an adult. Despite the fact that I have all kinds of adult responsibilities and adult things that I've got to tend to, there's a part of you that always feels a little younger than you actually are. You can just feel like, I can't do this. I'm not up for this. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to work that. Like, you can feel like a total imposter, especially when failure starts to lie to you. You can start to become cynical. Cynical about what you can do, or cynical about the world around you. And here's the deal with cynicism. Cynicism often presents itself like a kind of wisdom. You think things are going to be okay? Pfft, sheeple. Things are not going to be okay. Like, you just haven't lived enough life to know. You're just being naive. Cynicism presents itself as a kind of wisdom, but it's almost always instead a kind of wound. You're not cynical because you didn't have hope. You're cynical because you did, and then your hopes were dashed. You're not cynical because you didn't care. You're cynical because you did, only to find out it didn't work out the way you thought it would. Cynicism presents itself as a kind of wisdom, but it's usually a kind of wound. And oftentimes when failure starts to lie to you, you can start to get cynical. You can start to become risk averse. I mean, the reason lots of companies fail is because they failed once and it made them skittish. They don't want to fail again. Famously, you may be aware of this, Kodak, an in-house engineer came up at Kodak with one of the very first digital cameras. Like there was going to be a few years later a digital camera revolution. But Kodak put the kibosh on the project because they were afraid if they released a digital camera, it would cut into their film product, and they didn't want to lose the money that they were getting from selling camera film to people. So they canceled the project. Only years later, other people released the digital camera, and Kodak ended up becoming a business that was smaller and smaller and smaller. They could have tried to replace themselves, but instead other people replaced them because they got too risk averse. A little bit of failure or feeling like you have too much to lose can make you risk averse. Loss of confidence, right? You fail once, or you perceive to have failed a number of times, and then you start to get a little skittish, start to lose some confidence. Loss of joy. Like when your anxiety about failure starts to kick in, failure in relationships, failure at work, it can start to be difficult to live a joyful life. So as I look at this conversation that God has with Elijah, and we'll look at a portion of it in just a moment, here's the back and forth. Elijah says, hey, it's all me. No one else is left. It's on my shoulders. I want to die. God pushes back. It's not all on you. I'm raising up 7,000. I have some other things for you to do. I need you to move past this. No, he's already let him, right, recover. Now he's helping him process, but he's going to move him on to something else. And we see this pattern in the Bible a number of times with people who have failed. And so I just want to take this pattern and kind of pull out some pieces that I think are helpful when you are working out, operating out of a failure that, like from your past, that I think is helpful to like move past it and move through it. So just 5 quick things. First of all, respond to failure by telling the truth. Like, tell the truth about what happened, right? Elijah's like, oh, it's all up to me. I'm the only one left. And God's like, no, it's not true. I'm going to push back on that is not true. You got to tell the truth. If you failed, that's tough. It's difficult, it's challenging, but you got to name what's real about it. How much of it was your fault? How much of it was circumstance? And if you're not sure, talk to some people who you trust to have a good picture of who you are. Not someone who's going to flatter you totally, or someone who's going to shame you regardless. Like, those aren't the people. Those are not good mirrors. Those are like funhouse mirrors, right? Like where you look in a funhouse mirror and it looks like you're 900 pounds. Like, that's a bad mirror. Find some people who you really trust to know you well, who can help you process. I had this failure. I had this thing. Like, what was my part in it? And what wasn't? Tell the truth. And then learn the lesson. Okay, if I can, what can I take from this that next time it might be different? And then reject the lie, right? You're going to find the truth, but there's going to be some things that that failure is going to tell you that are lies, and you got to figure out what the lies are and throw them out. That is not helpful in future decision making. And then stay connected. Here's what's fascinating about failure. When we fail, we are so prone to disconnect from other people and to go and try to be by ourselves. Like, maybe we're embarrassed or humiliated. We just want to be on our own. And so the very thing we need, which is other people speaking truth into our lives, we often leave on the table because we've got to walk away. So it's important to stay connected, and God chooses to connect to Elijah and refuses to let him just go off on his own in the cave and just be done with life. And then finally, take the next faithful step. Take the next faithful step. Like, after failure, odds are you're not going to fix everything or do a total 180 turnaround immediately overnight. What is the next faithful step you can take once you've figured out the truth, learned the lesson, rejected the lies, and stayed connected to other people? That's the invitation. And that's what God invites Elijah into, to take the next faithful step. God's not done with Elijah. And so, chapter 19, verse 15, the Lord told him, go back the same way you came and travel to the wilderness of Damascus. God says, hey, I know you've come all this way. You've been running away from your perceived failure. You've been running away from the thing that you're afraid of. I need you to go exactly back to the place you came from. I'm not done. I am not done with you. You think you failed. You think, what's the point? You think you're the only one. None of that is true. I need you to go right back where you came from now that we've processed this pain together, and I need you to be a totally different person. And he gives him 3 things he wants him to do. He wants him to appoint 2 kings, and he wants him to anoint his own successor. And Elijah ends up following God's instructions here and not letting failure be the end of his story. And he goes and anoints these 2 kings because that's what God told him to do. And he goes and anoints his successor, Elisha, because that's what God told him to do. And eventually, he ends up getting taken up into heaven on a chariot of fire. That's where this story ultimately ends. Elijah is one of 2 people in the entire biblical canon that doesn't die a natural death, but instead gets taken up into the heavens because of his faithfulness, because this failure was not the end of his story, even though failure wanted to be. Failure lies to us. It lies to us. Failure says you're finished. And Elijah learned that God says you're not finished. You're not. You're not finished. See, failure doesn't have to be the end of your story, but you need to know that it will try to become the narrator. Failure will try to whisper in your ear and tell you, like, you're not good enough, you can't cut it, God's not with you, like it's all your fault. And look, there are all kinds of lessons that we have to learn from failure. But it will try to be the primary narrator of your story. And instead, what you need to be is a powerful teacher, because failure is a terrible identity, but it is a powerful teacher if you've processed it. So, put the 5 things back up. Tell the truth, learn the lesson, reject the lie, stay connected, take the next faithful step. When I was in my mid-20s, I met an older gentleman at a church I was at the time. His name is Quincy. And he was in his 60s and had an awesome marriage. And I remember just, my wife and I had just been married a very short time. And I remember hanging out with them a little bit and saying they'd been married for over 20 years. And I just really enjoyed spending time with them. Sometimes when you see like a healthy marriage modeled, especially when you're early on trying to figure it out, it's just really healthy, really a good thing. I remember one day I was talking to Quincy, and he told me that this was actually his 2nd marriage, and I didn't realize that. They've been married quite a while, so I thought, tell me about the first one then. And he told me that in his first marriage, his wife had actually had an affair and cheated on him, and that had ended up in divorce. And I remember feeling like really bad for him right away. I was like, oh man, I am so sorry to hear that. I'm sure that's not what you expected that marriage to be. And he said something to me that stuck with me for a long time. He said, Josh, divorce is almost never a single person's fault. Through my behavior, I definitely contributed to driving my wife into the arms of another man. I did not treat her with the dignity and the respect that she deserved. And we didn't jump into all the details, but what I learned from talking to him a little bit more after that is that after the failure of that marriage, he had done the work of processing the pain. And he was willing to tell the truth. Like, it would have been really easy for him to say, like, oh, it's all her fault. But in this case, he felt like, no, I share a part of this blame. He ended up learning the lesson. How would I want to treat then my spouse if I were to be able to restart, if I were to be able to reset, if this were to happen again? What would I do differently as a husband and a father? He was able to reject the lie that it was all his fault or that it was all her fault, because he had some good friends that he stayed connected to, and they helped him process. He said one of the things that was so challenging about that time, and some of you have walked through this exact thing before, is like we had a bunch of friends, but they were like our friends as a couple. And then those friends weren't sure, like, are they still friends with both of us? Do they have to choose one or the other in the relationship? And he was like, I've never felt so lonely. And he said, and the thing that I wanted to do was to just kind of run away and be by myself and not stay connected to anybody. And he said, and the thing instead that I found was incredibly helpful was to stay connected to a few. and they helped him process, and they helped him pray through, and they helped him think through. And none of that made it easy. It was incredibly challenging. And he bore the scars of that failed marriage for years to come. But he stayed connected. And then he took the next faithful step, which for him was to just connect to God more and more and to see where God took him. And eventually it took him to Sandra, and they were married. And he received a beautiful second chance and became the kind of loving husband and father he wished he'd been the first time. Like some of us have lost love, or we've lost jobs, or we've just lost our confidence, or we feel like imposters. For some of us, it feels like, man, that failure or that set of failures is the definition of my life. But failure wants to be your narrator. And just like God spoke to Elijah, you cannot let it be. He is not done with you yet. Failure is a terrible identity, but it is a powerful teacher. And my hope is that as we've been talking today, and you've probably had some of your past failures floating through your mind, my hope is that you can grab onto those failures and figure out what's true and what's false about them. Figure out what the lesson is. Figure out who it is that you can process it with and choose to take your next faithful step. A lot of times, as Elijah discovered, your breakthrough, your next big breakthrough, is right past the point where you want to give up. And my hope for you is that you discover what Elijah discovered, which is that even in your failure, God is with you and he is for you. In the New Testament, we see this pattern of Elijah play out over and over and over again, that the people who made the biggest mistakes were often used to do the biggest things for the kingdom of God. Jesus' brother James didn't believe that Jesus was Lord during Jesus' lifetime, which you can understand. Those of you who have siblings, what would it take for your siblings to convince you that they're God? Probably a lot more than they have. James was finally convinced when Jesus rose from the dead, and he became a leader in the early church. But before he was a leader, he was a skeptic. Peter denied Jesus 3 times on the very night that he was arrested, tried, and crucified. But Jesus restored him after his resurrection, and Peter became a leader in the early church. The Apostle Paul persecuted the church, oversaw the stoning of other Christians because he believed that this way of Jesus was a heresy to the Jewish religion, only to have an encounter with Jesus that completely changed his trajectory. Over and over and over, people in the New Testament who ended up being used by God mightily failed. And over and over and over, the processing of their failure and their understanding that God is with them in the midst of it is why they succeeded. May your failure be a powerful teacher, because that is part of how to handle anything. Next week, we'll talk about how to have success without losing your soul, because both failure and success can be highly problematic. We hope you'll join us next week. Would you stand together? I'm going to pray for us. And after I pray, the band is going to lead us in one final worship song today. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the time together this morning. Thank you that the scripture is very clear-eyed about imperfect people. Thank you that Peter and Paul and James and Elijah all get a chance to tell their story, and that parts of it are not beautiful. But thank you that, God, what they find over and over is that you're with them and you're for them. And we thank you that that's true for us as well. God, use the failure in our life as a powerful teacher, but help us to refuse it to be our narrator. Help us to see Jesus as the author and the perfecter of our faith. And it's in his name we pray. Amen. Would you worship with us as we conclude this morning?
Let's sing this together. Tell me what surrender really looks like. Show me what it means to trust your heart. If I'm waiting for the perfect moment, and there's never been a better time to start, you can have it all. You can have it all. Holding back from you is so ironic. You made me so, you know, and I pretend. Your faithfulness resolves my indecision. So I choose to yield myself over again. Oh, and I'll do it every chance that I get. You can have it all. 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 Yeah. It's not that hard. It's not that complicated to trust in your heart. And that is the invitation. So I'm letting go now. I know that I won't regret it. I'm laying it down. It's all on the altar waiting. You guys, if you're finding yourself in a place where you're struggling to take that next step forward in faith, let this bridge be for you. Can we worship through that today? Let's sing that again. It's not that hard. It's not that complicated. It's not that hard. It's not that complicated to trust in your heart. And that is the invitation. So I'm letting go now. I know that I won't regret it. I'm laying it down. It's all on the altar waiting. You can have it all. 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 Amen, amen. Hey, church, it's been awesome spending our Sunday morning with you guys. We have our shepherding elders in the back corners of this room. They are there to pray with you. Please, that's really important. Don't hesitate to stop by and just share what's on your heart today. We love you guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.